Welcome back to F-14 construction. Alright, so where we left off with the horizontal stab antenna fairings, I got them put on there. They were sticking out. We filled them with body filler, and you can see they've been sanded smooth. The body filler is in there, and that's pretty much the fairings are done. So all the stabs need for these are a little bit of shot of paint on the leading edge just to make sure there's no pinholes. Hopefully there's not. If there's not, once that's done, I'll shoot probably a coat of color on there. I've got to fill in this portion on the root side, and then both horizontal stabilizers are done and they are ready to be molded. After the last video, I did a little bit more filling on the vertical stab and their fairings. They're ready to go. They're ready to be sanded down. And again, a little bit of paint shot on those to make sure everything's working, or all the pinholes are gone. If that works out fine, they'll be ready to be molded as well. And I also got the one antenna installed on the left side of the vertical fin, so that's there as well. So on the table now, you see the left-hand wing panel. I mentioned earlier in a couple of videos a while ago actually, and that I wasn't sure how I was going to do the wing panels because they're so large. The litho plate sheets aren't large enough to do the wing all in one piece. So what I've decided to do is I'm just going to go ahead and still cover it in litho plate instead of filling this all in with body filler and sanding it down and painting. At this point, I've already kind of got myself on a one-way ticket to doing the litho plate only. There will be two seams on both the top and the bottom side of each wing panel where the two pieces of litho will butt together. After we get the molded parts out, that'll be no problem. You just put a little bit of body filler in there to fill in that seam and you'll probably never see it again. So it won't be too much of an issue. So the way I come up with these panels for the size of them, these are pretty simple because we got the leading edge, all the aluminum, the litho plate details up under the tape here. You can see how they cross up under. I've taped off the perimeter just to keep some of the contact adhesive out of the way. So what you do is I drew all the panel-ons for all these things onto the wing surface using the 3 views and doing a little bit of math. Then I just take regular old copy paper, transparent paper, tracing paper is the word I'm looking for. Lay it over, and you can see how everything just shows through on it. So what I do is once you have the tracing paper, you'll take the tracing paper and you'll outline where you're going, and then you'll cut it out, and then you get the tracing paper template. Then you'll do this for both portions. There you can see this is one panel, this is another panel, and then we'll have an additional panel here at the root side. The spoiler that goes here, that whole spoiler panel, I'm yet to fiberglass and get all that stuff going, but it'll get a piece of litho plate or possibly Monaco. I haven't decided yet. This will all have a flange pre-molded, so the spoilers will sit at they'll sit flush with the rest of the trailing edge. Alright, so once we have our tracing paper panels done, we'll take a piece of our litho plate. You take your tracing paper template, put it down on there, and again I would make 2 dots per line, and then I'd take a straight edge and I would draw it back out on the actual litho plate. So you're drawing it on the wing, you're drawing it on the paper, you're cutting it out of the paper, and then you're drawing it onto the litho plate and then cutting out of the litho plate. So you're doing the same operation 5 times. So it does leave a little bit of room for error, so you have to be really accurate on how you do it. For drawing on the tracing paper, I just use a really fine tip ballpoint pen, and for copying it down on the litho plate, I just use a ultra fine Sharpie. And when you cut it, you want to cut away the line. So typically what I do is I just cut right down the middle of the black line when it's drawn on the litho plate. Then once you cut out the litho plate, since everything's such a nice straight edge, I just took a straight edge, took a regular razor blade, scored the litho plate twice, and that with a good bit of force on that scored it enough to where it pretty much just tore right apart. It didn't snag or anything. So once you get it all cut out, there's the one panel, and here's the other panel. And you'll see they fit, well, you can't see it very well, but they fit together really tightly. So if we're careful and we get them on the actual wing really tight, there's a good chance that you'll never even see that line, or you'll be able to sand it out of the surface coat of the mold. So with these two panels ready, this wing panel is officially ready to have its panels put on. Again, blue painter's tape around the perimeter just to keep the glue off the aluminum. Something I started doing just recently, just because the stuff's a pain to get off after it's already cured for a couple of months or years in this case. The adhesive is 3M Scotch Weld 1300L. We use this at work for actually attaching rubber de-ice boots to the leading edges of King Air 90s and 200s, if you're wondering what you would use that for. I have used the regular contact adhesive you would get at Home Depot or Walmart or whatever. It did okay, but this stuff works much better. The downside is it's $40 a quart compared to the stuff at Home Depot is $8 a quart. So you do get what you pay for in this instance. To keep from making a mess, I've got it's just an old set of approach plates from work that are out of date, and I just use these as something to brush the contact adhesive on. This stuff, you can't let it dry more than 4 minutes before you have to reactivate it with toluene. I don't have any of that particular chemical here, so you just gotta work extremely fast. You do need to work in a really well ventilated area. This stuff is very strong. I've got both windows and the door open to the shop now. I mean, this stuff, it kills you. It kills the the smelling senses of you. So just kind of twirl it around to kind of stir it inside of it a little bit to get it all mixed up really well again. This stuff, if you get a nice tight seal of the lid, it'll last a while. This can is actually the last can I bought over a year ago, and it's still really good. So just a regular acid brush is all I'm using, and again, you just gotta work really fast. Since we're working fast, I just completely cover the acid brush and just really put it on there. Here on the actual litho plate part, you don't have to put it on really thick, just the even coat. But on the actual fiberglass surface, the fiberglass, I didn't put a filler coat on it. I just shot a layer of epoxy on it, so it will be so you can still feel the weave from the 6-ounce cloth, which I think helps it grab a little bit better. But you have to put it on a little bit thicker on the actual wing because of all the low spots and the high spots. So on these large panels like this, I only do half of the litho plate panel. Then I'll take it off, and I'll actually do the actual wing panel now. That way everything, you don't get more than 4 minutes or so, and the areas that do dry for 4 minutes, by the time you get the panel on, the trailing edge of the panels are reaching about their 4-minute drying time period. And you're probably wondering how critical is that 4 minutes. If you're within a couple of minutes, like 2, you're pretty good. I've waited 5 or 10 minutes with this stuff, or even 8 or 10 minutes, and it worked, but it doesn't stick quite as well, and you don't notice it at first, but over time you really notice how it doesn't stick quite as well as the stuff that you got on really quickly. Larger panels are, especially around the corners, a little bit harder to get to stick, so I always put it a little thicker around the edges. And again, this stuff is really strong, smell wise. Alright, so the wing panel is done, and now we'll come back to the litho plate piece. Again, you just want an even and complete coverage. Especially around the edges. Alright. Let that sit for just a minute. Literally. Get this stuff out of the way. And zoom you guys in a little bit. It's going to be really hard for me to show you the entire process just because it's a big panel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start here at the leading edge, and I'm only going to put a little corner down. You don't want to put much, or else, because once this stuff sticks, it's stuck. It's not going anywhere else. The most critical with this is the trailing edge because of the spoiler cutouts. So I'm more worried about getting that correct than I am the leading edge portion of it. You're probably wondering, it's like, well, why did I start putting the glue at the leading edge and then put the trailing edge down first? Since it's still wet, that gives you a little bit of movement to move the panel around, just in case you get the position wrong a little bit. And then you just work your way span wise, just pressing it down until you get all the way to the leading edge, and then I go from the trailing edge to the leading edge as well. Got a little area here where the leading edge slats go. Again, just a little wallpaper roller to get in there and get it really tied down, and then the little part that kicks out there in the front. Then I like to run down the leading edge seam and all the, pretty much around the perimeter of the whole panel. And there you have it. That's the outer panel on that wing. So 1 out of 3, well, really 1 out of 6 complete for the left wing, with just a little bit more to go on the right side. I've already got the right side done, and it's even bigger. So I'll just quit talking and get back to work. Recycle the tape. Stuff's expensive enough as it is, and just peel it up and then just transfer it to the other side on top of the aluminum panel. The one thing you have to be careful about with these rollers is you don't want to run it on its edge, because you will leave a crease down the middle of the litho plate. So it's just something to be a little aware of. And there's actually a couple of times where it's a good point where you can do that if you can actually do some kind of a little bit of weathering by doing that before you even put the whole thing together. Alright, so I'm going to place this into position, just make sure it fits correctly. Again, the trailing edge is the more important part because of all the little spoiler hinge cutouts and the jagged trailing edge. That works fairly well. To mark my where I want to stop with the glue, I'm just going to trace along the inboard edge of this panel with a Sharpie marker. So as you can see, we've got a lot of area to cover with these panels. So you got a lot of glue to put down in really a short amount of time. then for this, I'm actually just going to use the wing as the backing board for the glue.
Alright. Now wasn't that just fun? Put the lid back on that. Let this thing sit for just a minute. And we'll start putting it back into position. Again, starting with the trailing edge, making sure all of our spoiler panel cutouts are lined up. Pat that in place, and then run to the leading edge. your span wise to press it down. And leading edge and trailing edge as well, just to make sure it's not spanning across anything. And roll it around the perimeter again. Well, there we go. That's 2 of the top panels done. Just a couple more to go. We can peel the tape off here. There is a little bit of glue on the panel still, but that'll come off with a little bit of acetone or toluene or MEK. And again, here, after peeling the tape off, I'm gonna roll around the perimeter of it one more time. So there we go. There's a third of a wing done, and a little bit of magic, we have 2/3 of a wing done. So there we go. There's 1/3 of the top of each wing panel completed for the F-14. I'm gonna go in, get some dinner, and I'm gonna come out and make some more templates. Of what, I'm not sure. Here on the bottom of the wings, you can see we're pretty much ready to place our large panels in the center. Fairly easy to do with those. The only thing we have is a jagged area. The downside is when I did all the detailing on the bottom, I made the small mistake and put all of these trailing edge panels in the wrong position. They're actually a 1/4 inch too far aft. So I've got to peel all these back off and reposition them forward a 1/4 of an inch or so. So I'll probably pull those off, make new templates, which, if you're wondering, oh man, it kind of sucks you made all those templates and probably threw them away. One thing with projects like this is when you're making that many templates, you keep them all. So maybe one day it'll be rainy and I decide that I'm just bored and want to know exactly how many panels are on the F-14. I literally have a box full. So until next time, y'all have a good weekend, get the flying done, and keep the wheels to the ground. Have a good weekend.